On to another story we're following. Israel plans to seek $250 billion from 7 Arab countries and Iran for property left behind by Jews when they were forced to leave their homes in those countries back in 1948. That's the time when the State of Israel was being established. The compensation announcement comes after an 18-month study by the Israeli government researching the value of properties and assets. Now, according to an Israeli TV news agency, Israel will first seek $35 billion from Tunisia, $15 billion from Libya, and compensation also be sought from Morocco, Iraq, Syria, Egypt, Yemen, and Iran, with a grand total of about $250 billion. So for more on this story, we are being joined now by our friend, former UK MP George Galloway. So George, Israel now seeking what's tantamount to reparations in the amount of $250 billion for Jewish families forced to leave their homes from Arab states back in the late 40s. Some 800,000 Jews fled at least 10 Arab countries after the creation of Israel. Is this a fair request?
Well, it's laughable in a way if you think about it. You just named the countries there. Let's take just one, Iraq. Israel bombed and destroyed the nuclear reactors in Iraq, the Oz-Iraq affair, some 25, 30 years ago. Is Iraq going to be compensated by Israel for that? Israel has occupied for more than 50 years Jordanian territory in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, Egyptian territory in the Gaza Strip, and ruthlessly exploited those territories, never mind what it did to the people there. Israel occupies and has annexed a part of Syria, the Golan Heights, and is harvesting oil there as we speak. Is Israel going to compensate Syria for that? It would be laughable if it were not for this fact. There are some of these countries have got funds frozen in the United States. Libya, for example. What happens now if Israel goes to the United States courts, finds a patsy judge who'll find for them, and then helps itself to Libyan assets frozen in the United States? Ditto Iranian assets. Then there's the question of 10 million Palestinians living outside of their homeland as refugees for the last 70 years. Who's going to compensate them for the misery and the dislocation to their lives?
Because conversely, the Palestinian Authority is also seeking $100 billion in compensation from Israel for assets left behind by Palestinians who were forced out of their homes when Israel seized control of those territories. How is this any different? How can Israel do the same thing?
Well, the Palestinians were living in a country called Palestine, and now they're not. And their country was wiped off the map, and they and their children and their children and now their children have been living as refugees and exiles. This is a compensation claim par excellence. Nobody could gainsay it. If there was any justice in the world, it would be an open and shut case. In the case of Jews who left Arab countries, they left voluntarily to go to a country with whom their previous country was at war. The Arab countries were in a state of war. Some of them still are, with the new state of Israel. Some of them undoubtedly were chased out. Others were the result of a now well charted by Israeli historians operation which sought to stampede them out of Iraq, out of Egypt, and over to Palestine and the newly created state of Israel, with bombs going off in synagogues and so on, that are now acknowledged by revisionist Israeli historians to have been part of Israel's special operations. So it's a swamp. And the idea that Israel has a case for $250 billion worth of compensation is frankly absurd. Little Tunisia, one of the poorest countries in the Arab world, is being demanded 35 billion. I don't think Tunisia has even got 35 billion.
Yeah, I don't think their GDP quite even meets that amount in 5 years.
No, not quite.
Now, Israel's request, though, is also tied to President Trump's upcoming Mideast peace plan, as he calls it. He says he's going to broker Middle East peace for the first time, because Israeli law that they have written in the books now states that any peace deal must provide these reparations. Where do you see this leaving the potential for a two-state solution if reparations are to be a part of it?
Well, Manila, if anybody believes that Donald Trump has a peace plan that has any chance of going anywhere, I've got a bridge here in London. I could sell them at quite a knockdown price. The reality is this is all smoke and mirrors. It's all a dance of the seven veils, but the veils are not actually going to come off. Kushner and Trump have enough trouble staying out of trouble in the United States without solving now almost a century of trouble in the Middle East. But just in case, Israel, as a poker player, is upping the ante with these demands for compensation.
All right, it sounds like it's all for a big dog and pony show for the time being. So we will see who gets any money moved into their bank accounts. Thank you, as always, sharing your insights with us, George Galloway.